So I'm going to talk to you about preparing for the future. But before we get started, just to wake everybody up a little bit, can everyone stand up for me, please? Don't worry, it's not going to be horrible audience participation or anything. Can anyone who isn't a regular user of Facebook, can you please sit down? Be honest. Okay, next one. If anybody doesn't have a Twitter account, can you please sit down as well? Right, last one. Anyone who does not have their own blog, can you please sit down too? Oh, we've got a few standing. Give them a round of applause, come on. Hey. However, you can sit back down. You do not get a prize because technology is not the point. In fact, the world is obsessed with tools. I wouldn't go into a hardware store to buy a hammer and then ask whether I should put up shelves or fix the door. Yet, it's easy to fixate on tools like social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or other tools, human capital management systems, big data systems, despite the fact that they are just today's tools, and tomorrow it might be something else. I believe it's not a technology challenge that business is facing today. It's a human psychology challenge. And that's why, although that is a deceptive picture, this is not going to be a presentation all about shiny new tools and technology, because I think we have a much more important business challenge that we need to focus on to prepare for the future. Because I bet even over the course of this conference, you'll have had loads of new ideas, and there'll be lots of new possibilities and new things to think about, which on one hand is really exciting and motivating, and you can't wait to get started and do stuff. But then on the other hand, you get back to work, and it becomes daunting and a bit overwhelming because you think, well, I'm already so busy. How am I ever going to action all this stuff? I already have so much to do. And this is a universal problem. This is not me preparing for my accounts. This is a universal problem. We are all suffering from information overload. We're all drowning in email. We all spend half our life in meetings. And then we often get home at the end of the day feeling exhausted and like we haven't always achieved anything. And technology in all this often seems actually more of a blocker than an enabler. And really, there just aren't enough hours in the day. So what are we going to do? How are we going to action all this new stuff that we've learnt and talked about at this conference and everywhere else? How are we going to even get to the bottom of our to-do list, let alone prepare for the future? The thing is that always trying to do more, trying to do too many things, creates huge amounts of stress. And not just us personally, but it stresses out businesses and damages our companies too. And you can see this in the fact that 90% of all strategy that we create in the world is never implemented. What a waste. And all these new fancy projects that we come up with, lots of them don't work either. 29% of mergers and acquisitions fail. A third of business process re-engineering, half of quality improvement programs, 20% of tech changes fail, fail, fail. But in the words of a very, very successful basketball coach in the States, the late Mr. John Wooden, he said, failure is not fatal, but failure to change might be. So I don't think we need to feel bad and waste our energy feeling bad about all the projects or all the strategies that haven't worked so well so far. But I do think that we need to face up to it, and we need to admit it, and we need to talk about it. Because it's only then that we're actually going to be able to change. And it's only then that we'll actually be able to focus on the biggest challenge that is facing business in the 21st century. However, before we get onto that, while we're in the mode of admitting things and talking about them and facing up to them, I have a confession to make. And I haven't ever actually admitted this before, not to a live audience anyway. but we'll see how it goes. Okay. My name is Jane Young, and I feed on people's fear. Doesn't sound very nice. I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't the plan, but I do. Because I am a futurist. And that means I see things that you don't see in the future. And I can make them sound very complicated and scary so that everyone feels afraid of the future. And I'll show you an example of how I do this. This is me spreading fear. One of the things I've talked about a lot over the past few years is social business. Don't worry if you don't know what social business means. Not many people do. That's why it's a fear spreader's dream. And so I've done lots of talking about social business, and that means companies come to me and they say, Jane, we want to be a social business. We don't really know what it means, but we think it's something to do with social media, maybe collaboration, networks, the internet, the future. But one thing we do know for sure is that we are scared. We are scared because everyone else is doing this new thing except us. How can we become a social business? And then I say, ha-ha, let me help you with that. I will create a social business strategy for you. And then, like any other strategy, this is a grand PowerPoint that goes through many layers of approval over many months and years, up to the board. And like every other strategy, it has a grand vision and goals and objectives and case studies and initiatives and fancy diagrams on PowerPoint slides. But the question is, did these strategies actually work? And while I'm confessing, I will tell you, not really. I'm not saying that nothing got better. I'm not saying we didn't do anything and that nothing changed. Little things happened here and there. Change was successful in little pieces. We did stuff. But did we actually reach the grand vision that I'd promised? Did we get anywhere close? Not really, no. And actually, I could be walking down the corridor in one of these companies 2 years later, and I'd bump into someone on the board, and they'd say, so, what's this social business thing? And after all the time and the effort we'd invested in describing it and defining it and doing lots of PowerPoints, still, we had no clarity. And the reason we had no clarity is because we were answering the wrong question. And in the words of a very clever mathematician called John, an approximate answer to the right question is worth a great deal more than a precise answer to the wrong question. You see, those people had been coming to me and saying, how can we become a social business? Despite not having any clarity on what that meant, they had clarity on one thing, and that was fear. We are scared that we're the only people not doing this new thing, and we have to be doing it now. And the reason they had that fear, I've got to take responsibility, because I created it. And that's because, like I confessed to you, I feed on people's fear. And people like me are not going to stop capitalizing on people's fear because it's a great growth strategy for us. And this is how we do it. First of all, one of the great things about creating fear is what you have to do is you have to create lots of buzzwords to mess with people's minds. And see if you don't know what these buzzwords mean, you should be scared because you obviously don't get it. And other people do, especially younger ones. And if you get these buzzwords confused or get them a bit wrong, then everyone is going to laugh at you. And then you're going to start to feel like your dad dancing at a teenage daughter's party. It's not a good look. And then everybody's going to go, ha, ha, ha. And then you're going to think, no, the ship is sailing. And then they're going to go, ha, ha, ha. And you're going to feel like you've been left behind. And we do this through the fear propagation life cycle. I play a big role in the fear proposition lifecycle because people like me, you create new products, you create new services, you create new concepts and stories and make all this stuff up, and then consultants spread it and create even fancier PowerPoints, and they elaborate on it. And then we all try and sell it to scared people who think they should be also doing this because everyone else is doing this, even though we don't quite know why. And they panic by it. And every fear propagation lifecycle, it needs a good sort of fear strategy. And the fear strategy goes something like this. Number one, you must create a very complex diagram that people will steal to use in their presentations to make them look clever. I've done many of these with social business. I'm working on one now, as it happens, about transformational engagement. There was employee satisfaction. But they're dinosaurs now, if you're focusing on that. Then there was employee engagement. Now there's transformational engagement. So you're a loser dinosaur if you're still doing any of those things, because now everybody's doing this. And I will create fancy diagrams that people pushing engagement will steal to use in their presentations to make them look clever. And then the second of all, like I was saying, we create lots of buzzwords. Lots of buzzwords. And you need to own these, so that later on you can say, well, yes, I coined that phrase back in 2014. Or the other thing you can do is you can take sets of existing business problems, old ones that we've always had, and you can just make up a new name for them. I saw a guy do this really well the other week. He was talking about information overload, and he relabeled it an info esteem problem. And then once you've got your complex diagrams and all your buzzwords, and then you need to focus on the key message. And the key message is everyone else is doing it except you, so you're a loser dinosaur if you're not. So hurry up. And we focus on that relentlessly. And here's the second part of my confession. I'm not proud of this. I'm quite ashamed of it. And you'll be pleased to know that I also have grown out of it. But I used to spend a few years back a lot of time in coffee shops, trendy ones, in Soho, in London, drinking coffee with other fear spreaders, talking about people who get it and don't get it. And looking back, I don't even know what it was. Were we talking about people who could only use 3 features on their phone, or who weren't on Facebook 24 hours a day? What was it? They don't get it. But the thing is, not knowing what it was didn't actually bother us at the time, probably because we were so cool. And we'd actually be labeling people. It's so stupid. We would be, oh yeah, he doesn't get it. She gets it. She does not get it. He gets it. He does not get it. And how ridiculous. Absolutely crazy. Obviously, we all got it. So how come I realized that this was ridiculous and arrogant and pointless and a myth? Well, I didn't at first. So where do all strategists go to get paid for drinking coffees, talking about people who get it, don't get it, making PowerPoints and creating buzzwords? That's where I went. Advertising. Then I have to cringe in case any advertising people are going to throw things at me. Don't get me wrong, I love advertising. Advertising is so much fun. This is me having fun in advertising. This is me spreading fear on a panel debate about social media with 3 top people in advertising, one of which did not get it. Look at the passion. And my role in these advertising agencies that I worked with, they'd wheel me out for pitches and for client meetings. And my job would be to go, whoa, the future, look, it's really confusing and complicated, and you don't get it, I get it, you don't, you should be scared, and therefore you need us. That's what we'd be doing. And so the journey that we took clients on, in terms of the future, it went a bit like this. The client would be thinking, is this relevant to me? And then I would go, social, mobile, emergent, hyperlocal, superglobal collaboration in the cloud. And they'd be thinking, secretly, I don't really get this. And then I would be like, social, local, mobile, solo, gamification models. And then they'd be getting a bit scared. And they'd be thinking, I'm going to get left behind. And then I'd be like, future, shiny, tech, mobile, social. And then they'd be thinking, am I the only dinosaur in the room? Am I from a bygone era? And then I'd be like, socializification of the nation. And they would be mission accomplished. They'd be terrified. They'd feel completely irrelevant. I didn't know this is what I was doing at the time. It's only when you look back you realize these things. And it was so stupid because it was the worst ever case of the emperor's new clothes. We were all future, making it sound so complicated and fancy and creating all these new words for existing things, bombarding people. And then half the room was sitting there thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about. And the other half of the room was sitting there thinking, this is quite exciting. This bit, that bit, yeah, I'm quite inspired, but I can't really connect this to what's going to help me do my job better or help our company do better. Yet no one said anything because it was the emperor's new clothes. Nobody wanted to look like the dinosaur who didn't get it. So we all sat there confusing the hell out of each other, and nobody said a word. And the thing was that we'd lost our minds. We'd got so caught up in all these new future things that we had completely lost clarity. And we'd actually forgotten to remember the most basics of business. Because strategy at a high level is very generic. Pretty much every company in the world is trying to do the same thing. They are trying to grow, they're trying to get bigger, they're trying to make more money, get more customers. They're trying to do things better. Better products, better service, better employee experience. They're trying to do things faster, onboard new people more quickly, recruit more quickly, more efficient processes and more productivity. And they're trying to do things cheaper. Everybody wants to cut costs. Everybody wants to be more profitable. Bigger, better, faster, cheaper. Always the same. And the way we achieve these things is the same too. Because we focus on three things. All we do is get, keep, and grow new customers and new employees. That's it. Simple. Sounds simple. But the thing is that the way we get, keep, and grow customers and employees, and the way we get bigger, better, faster, and cheaper, that is also generic. That is also universal. This is how we do it. We start with an inspiring, motivating, clear, concise, memorable purpose. And a purpose, it's not something you can ever fully reach. It's infinite. It's just something you can aspire to. Like Amazon, be the Earth's most customer-centric company. Or Nike, bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And when you've got your inspiring purpose, then you can break this down into something that does have an end, that is achievable. And that's your mission, your ambition. And that's something you can fulfill and complete and then move on to the next one, but it'll take you closer to your world-changing purpose, the reason you exist. And then when you've got your ambition, you need to break this down into goals. Otherwise, you'll never achieve it. And my favorite way to do goals, whether it's personal or business, is to start with what are all the barriers that stand in between me and my ambition, and how can I turn these upside down? So for example, say my ambition is to get to #1 in the charts. There's quite a few barriers in my way. I can't sing, can't dance, don't have any songs, don't have a recording studio, don't have a producer, don't have a marketing plan. So my goals are learn to sing, learn to dance, get a producer, get a studio, get a plan. And then once you've got your goals, you've got to think about, well, what needs to happen in order for me to achieve those goals, my objectives? And then you come to do the actual work. And work is only done in two ways. either by following processes step by step or by completing projects. And projects break down into milestones and tasks. That is it. That's how we get bigger, better, faster, cheaper. That is how we get, keep, and grow customers and employees. And then this is all underpinned by values, by principles. I'm sure you all know your company values and could recite them at any moment. I won't test you. But they guide your behaviors, the way you make decisions, the way you go about doing all this stuff. And the thing is, if you can actually have an inspiring, clear, concise, motivating purpose, and you successfully manage to communicate that and filter it all the way through to every single person in the business, right to the people who are executing all the work, and then if those people who are executing all the work and completing the tasks and the projects, if they can see exactly how everything they do rolls up to the goals, rolls up to the higher purpose, then you have the Holy Grail. Then you have organizational clarity. That's what we've been missing. Organizational clarity is the #1 business challenge and opportunity of the 21st century. Lack of it is the #1 reason why projects fail and the #1 reason why strategies don't get implemented. And is this anything new? No. Have you heard these things before, packaged in different ways, probably in every business book in the world? No doubt. But it's amazing how few organizations are actually getting this right. I work with a company in the UK who measure employee engagement. They've been doing it for 15 years. They're called Best Companies. And they've got the biggest data set on engagement in the whole country. And when you look at that data, what it tells you is that every single business has a problem with organizational clarity. Even the ones that are the best places to work in the country, even the ones with the highest engagement. And the data also shows you that there's a massive correlation between engagement and clarity. So if one is high, the other's high. If one is low, the other is low. The other thing is that every single activity that we do every single day orbits around this purpose. And every system, it moves slower in the middle, and then it gets faster out to the edges. So although your purpose, if it is inspiring and clear and concise, it may never change, things as they move out to the edge can spin out of control, and they can lose touch with that purpose. And you can forget why you're doing stuff. And that's when projects fail. That is when strategies don't get implemented. So as we move into this world, we're only going to get piled with more and more new stuff. Getting complete clarity is the only way that we're going to be able to keep the main thing the main thing. And in a world where we cannot physically, as human beings, do any more work, it's what's going to enable us to actually make sure that we do the right work. Because clarity, without it, we have no filter. That's why we get bombarded and overloaded. And without it, we can see and hear all this noise that all these fear-spreading people are creating, but we don't know what to look at, and we don't know what to listen to. But if we have complete clarity, and we've really thought all this through and worked it all out, then we can look through at every single new thing through the lens of our goals. And we can cut out all that noise, and we can make sure that we always ask the right questions. The other thing about this being really important, that we always talk about our purpose and that we always talk about our big, hairy ambition, is that is how we're going to win the war for talent. That is the essence of building an employer brand and drawing people towards us, especially the new generation. They don't want to know what widgets we make or how we make them. They want to know why. They want to know what we believe. They want to know what we stand for. That's what's going to draw people towards us. And there's a guy, Simon Sinek, you might have seen speaking. He talks about this a lot. And he says it's people don't buy what you buy, what you do. They buy why you do it. And I think sometimes we can forget about this in the way that we describe what we do. And that's why we're not pulling talent towards us as quickly as we could. Because most companies start from the outside, talking about what they do, then how they do it, and then maybe why. And actually, it's much more powerful the other way around. And the example that he uses is Apple. Are there any Apple people in the room? They're still on the beach, aren't they? But this is how Apple would describe themselves if they were a normal company. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Want to work here? But this is how they actually do it. They start with a purpose. They start with the why. In everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Want to work here? And the reason for that is that we actually make decisions based on our emotional part of our brain, and that appeals to it much more strongly than the other way around. So we have to be purposeful. We have to talk about this. We have to have big ambition and solid principles, and that's going to pull talent towards us. Then we come on to our goals. Our goals have to be super clear, or we will never achieve our ambition. But this is simple because, remember, all we're trying to do is 4 things: bigger, better, faster, cheaper. And when I was talking about in social business that we were answering the wrong question, that's because they were saying, how can we become a social business? No, we should have been asking, how can these new social business ideas, practices, tools, stuff enable us to achieve our existing goals, bigger, better, faster, and cheaper? Then we would have had clarity. Then we would have had buy-in. Then I wouldn't have been bumping into directors in the corridor 2 years later who are still wondering what all this thing was. Then we come on to processes. Deming is one of my heroes, and he once said, if you cannot describe what you do as a process, then you don't know what you're doing. So once we've got our goals, what processes do we need to make them happen? I quite like sketching my process. Even making a cup of tea is a process. It has a start, it has an end, you go through steps to get there. And the great thing about us sketching our processes and making them visible is then we can see how to improve things. But also it means we can steal other people's. And that's what we need to do. For all our people challenges, we can steal processes from other business areas. Look at these challenges. Big ones in global employment. How do we share knowledge? Distributed workforce all over the place. Big companies, how do we do it? How do we enable colleagues to find the right person to help them do their work? The bigger the company, the bigger the challenge. And how do we reduce the amount of time people waste looking for information? Knowledge workers spend about half their time looking for information. Just imagine that on the salary bill. What a waste. But the thing is, we're not the first people in business to have these challenges. Who's had them already? Customer service, support. Because if you think about how we've always done customer service, we have to try and formally document the company's knowledge, put it into manuals and things. We open sometimes big, expensive call centers where people can help each other one-on-one and share knowledge that way. But now, say I buy a printer and I've got a problem with my printer. I can't get it plugged into my computer. I don't want to read a manual. I don't want to phone a call center. I just want to jump online, search for the answer, and maybe land in HP's social support community. And there, I'll be able to find my answer 9 times out of 10 because someone will have already asked the same question. If I can't, I can ask it. Within minutes, maybe seconds, someone will answer me. And that probably won't be an HP person. It might be a customer. Because they've realized that customers have more knowledge than the company. Just like employees are bound to have more knowledge than the company. So that's why we can start to see intranets being replaced by employee social networks. That's why we can steal these processes, these ways of sharing knowledge, answering and asking things amongst ourselves, somewhere visible and public that other people can benefit from that knowledge. It's already happening, but we don't need to reinvent the wheels because they've already sussed this stuff out. Another area, acquiring the best talent, massive challenge. Retaining them, incentivizing them, and making those employees love working at your company so much that they can't help but tell all their friends. Common challenges, we can steal these processes from other people. Marketing. They're all about get, keep, and grow. They do it for customers, so we can steal all their stuff and apply it to employees. Marketing for years have been looking at how can we get customers, how can we draw them towards us, how can we acquire them? And they do this often by sharing knowledge in white papers, blog posts, articles, and then that sucks people to their website. And we can do the same with careers sites, acquisition. And then once we've got them, we need to make them want to do business with us, conversion. And then once we've converted them, we need to keep them, which is retention. And then we need to grow them, which in customer terms would be upselling, cross-selling. In employee terms, it would be growing their knowledge, growing their ability to do stuff within the company. And then they've had such a wonderful experience that they tell everyone else, and it all starts again. So marketing have spent billions and zillions on this for years. They have all the metrics. For years, they've been measuring things like Net Promoter Score, which says how likely someone is to recommend your brand to their friends and family. So we can see now that internally, companies are using Employee Net Promoter Score. We've invested millions and millions in customer journeys and customer experience. But have we invested the same in the employee journey and the employee experience? So we can steal all these processes and tools from marketing. And that just leaves us with projects. And projects are where the war on talent really rages. Because projects are where we just cannot get enough skilled people to implement stuff that will enable us to achieve those goals. But is it really that the talent isn't there? Is it actually a talent shortage? Or is it that the talent is just hiding in different places? Look at LinkedIn. 259 million users. This is why recruitment agencies are afraid. Because we can help ourselves to that talent. That's a lot of talent. And talent is also hiding in big, massive communities full of thousands of freelancers and skilled people. This is guru.com, elance.com. They have engineers and software developers. They have designers, copywriters, all kinds of talented people, which is great for me as a small business owner because I can assemble a big global army. And suddenly I can compete with the big guys with my big instant team. But that's not the only way talent is hiding, or the only way we can acquire it flexibly. Because I've been working with another company in the UK who want to triple the size of their IT team. We could never recruit that fast. Impossible. So what we've done is we've partnered with a company in Kiev, and they do what's called the own team model. And what we do is we give them all the descriptions, the job specs. They go off with all their local market knowledge. They headhunt all these technical people for us. And then they interview them. They give us the short list of the best. We interview those, and we hire them, and they're just part of our team. But that company takes all the HR, all the finance, all the admin, office space, equipment, all that stuff away from us. We don't have to worry about that. So there's lots of new models. And even in a personal sense, there's big networks of virtual assistants. If you don't have one, you should. It's great. Networks. Richard Branson's PA set one up called Time, Etc. And these are big communities of people who you can pay by the hour to do everything that a PA can do. Even complicated things, they can do research projects, write reports. I've been experimenting with outsourcing parts of my life that I find a drag. I'd recommend it. So maybe the talent is there. Maybe it's just not where we expect it to be. And I wonder if that means to try and win the war for talent, we maybe just have to empower more people within the business at all levels to have a new skill, to be able to use other sources of talent. And this new skill is being the best conductor. Because we're going to all have to learn how to conduct these global orchestras. And that means having such clarity that we know exactly what we need these people to achieve, and it makes it easy for us to get them to help us. And we also have to admit that we don't have to learn how to play every instrument in the orchestra. We just need to be the best conductor. So that's the bottom of our pyramid. That's the clarity that we need to stick to in amongst all this future stuff. Because the clarity is the biggest challenge that we're facing today. And it is the biggest answer to all of our existing business problems. The only way that we're going to be able to stay on track with all this new stuff being thrown at us is to shift into a new era of extreme focus and extreme clarity. And that doesn't just apply to a company as a whole. It applies to every department, every team, and every individual. Because what about our life clarity? You know, how much time do we actually take out of the day-to-day madness to sit and really think about our personal purpose, you know, our reason for being here? What are we put on this earth to do? And have we actually still got our ambition? Have we lost touch with it? Have we sort of thought it's never going to happen? Or have we taken the time to actually think about the barriers that stand between us and our ambition and then turn them upside down into goals? And how many of us have even taken the time to go a step further than that and work out how we're going to achieve those goals? What processes do we need? And what projects do we need to implement to get there? Because the other thing is that the values, in some ways you don't have to worry about the values because they're the values that you've always had. You know, me and you could have the same purpose, but execute it in a completely different way because we have different values. So if you look back on your life, you know, where you're from, where you live now, where you've been, what jobs you've had, you can see that your values won't have changed. They'll have been the same all the way along. I'm from Shetland originally. Tiny little island, a Scottish island, halfway between Scotland and Norway. And we have to get a boat for 14 hours from Aberdeen in Scotland to get there. That's my village, where I was brought up. Faux. In fact, I went onto Google Maps. I thought I'll get a nice street view picture of my village to show you how tranquil and quiet and lovely it is, empty. And instead, Google had managed to capture, with their cameras for posterity, this big party happening outside the local bar with everyone dressed as superheroes and Blues Brothers. Which is probably a more accurate representation of island life, to be fair. But you know, Shetland's very real, and it's very free, and nobody cares about all this business stuff or all this future technology. Nobody cares about that. You know, we do things like dress ponies in jumpers. We rampage the streets dressed as Vikings. Whoa. And men spend all year in a big shed building an elaborate Viking longship so we can set it on fire in January every year. It's real and it's free. But because nobody cares about this business stuff and this future and technology, then I obviously wasn't going to fulfill my purpose or my ambition in Shetland, because businessy stuff is my purpose and ambition. You know, that's what I'm passionate about. So I moved to London. This is me in London. And London was great. I spent 10 years in London. It really fed my ambition and my purpose. But 10 years, I was thinking, something isn't right here. Something isn't aligned. It's not flowing. What is wrong? And I think my purpose, I know my purpose, that's still the same. I know my ambition is the same. It's the way I'm doing it. Because really, I'm from Shetland, you know, that's my culture. I like real, I like free, and I couldn't do that in London. That's not me, that's Lindsay Lohan. You might have noticed. But you get the idea. So what did I do? Last year, I decided that I would buy a really, really crappy old house in Portugal. Because I now live about an hour and a half away up north in the hills. And when I got there, I thought, wow, this is like Shetland, but with sunshine and trees. Yay, free and real. And I can still do all that businessy purpose stuff because I fly back to the UK every week and I do some work in Manchester. I've got a head office in London, and so I am globally mobile and completely non-compliant. And now I live in a shed. I live in a shed next to my pile of stones that I'm going to renovate. And that's where I'll be going after I've finished here today, back to my shed. But it's real and it's free, and now it all feels right, now it all feels aligned. Because the thing is about clarity is that is what enables us to actually achieve our dreams, just like that's what enables companies to get what they want and to achieve their dreams and purpose as well. Physicists haven't quite worked out how to give us more hours in the day, you see. So the only choice that we have is how we spend them. And that's why having this kind of clarity, taking the time to think this stuff through, work it all out, what it does is it stops us from failing by doing the wrong work. So, the other thing about this that I will mention, by the way, is if you do get this clarity and you know what all your goals are and you've broken it down into your projects, then you can outsource them to networks of virtual assistants all around the world. No one will ever know. And then you could be doing this. So the question is, what is your purpose? How are you going to, as Steve Jobs would say, put your ding in the universe? Because, as a clever lady, Margaret says, never believe that a few caring people can't change the world. For indeed, that is all who ever have. So, as we go forth into this era of complexity and chaos and fear-spreading people going, whoa, this era that demands a new level of laser-like focus and extreme clarity, doing less but doing it right and doing the right things. Just remember, be purposeful and be mindful. Because being mindful is about stopping yourself several times throughout the day and asking, what am I doing? Am I just being busy? Am I just doing tasks? Or am I actually doing the one thing that I can do today to take me further towards my goal? Because the future, it's not just some scary, complicated place that we're all going to be forced to go to. It's actually a place that doesn't exist yet, that all of us and all of you get to create. Thank you very much.